Analysis on the inquiry. We joined from our studios in Pretoria by Levy Ndou, a political analyst and politics and public policy lecturer at the Tshwane University of Technology. Bondo, good afternoon to you. Thank you so much indeed for coming through. Today was just really about laying the foundation and putting everything into perspective.
Yes, indeed. Good afternoon to you, Palisa. Good afternoon to the viewers at home. Indeed, well, as is the first day, one would have expected the proceedings the way they run, especially when you look at what has to be agreed upon, what are the things that those that are coming to make presentations are supposed to know and not to know. But for me, what is very, very important, is an open invitation, by the Commission to say anybody who has any form of information that can be useful for the purposes of this commission has to come forward. Remember, Palisa, we had a lot of people who were making complaints and issues around the state capture issue. And indeed, I would expect more of these kind of people to come forward and actually make their voice heard, so that South Africans will then get the entire information in relation to all the issues surrounding the state capture issue.
Yeah, it will indeed be an interesting one to see how that one pans out. But we've also heard from the lawyers representing various witnesses, them appealing to be given more time to make their representations. What do we read into that?
Well, obviously, even though that is another terrain, there is a trend in the legal fraternity that lawyers would always talk about not having been given sufficient time, in order to prepare. It's either you'll hear a lawyer saying we got the documentations late, or we could not get all the witnesses to provide all the necessary information. That is what we actually used to, especially in South Africa. But the point of the matter is, and which is very, very important for all of us, is to acknowledge the fact that the recommendations as presented by the former public protector, that there should be a commission of inquiry instituted. Indeed, that day has actually come. Yeah. And it is upon all of us as South Africans to come forward to provide all the necessary evidence so that South Africa has to focus on more important things that actually affect the ordinary citizens.
Indeed, the day has come, but we've also seen that a lot has actually happened since the recommendations by the former public protector advocate Tshwane University. There's been a shift in terms of power dynamics within the ruling party itself, as well as we've also seen the new president also coming in. Do you think that will have an influence on the outcome of the inquiry?
Remember, the ANC said they stand by the recommendations of the public protector, and they would love to see the issue of the state capture being addressed and done away with. But also, the coming in of the new leadership of the ANC could not have a lot to do with the state capture, because the recommendations were there and the commission had to be appointed by a former President Zuma. But I think if we come straight to your question, is as to whether we're going to get some of the individuals that were never mentioned in the state capture report, who might also come forward and actually make a presentation of certain events that actually happened in the exercise. But another issue that could be very much interesting, would be to find a situation where certain individuals that we might have thought are very much sympathetic to former President Zuma might also be seen coming forward and actually coming up with stories that might confirm that indeed certain elements of the state capture might have happened. But at the same time, there are very central individuals that one would expect them to come and make a presentation on what has actually happened in relation to state capture. Your former Deputy Finance Minister, former MP Friki Mente, you would also expect individuals like former Premier Ngwaku Ramatlhodi to come forward, because these are the people who have made statements in the past in the public space about certain activities that involved them being influenced by the Gupta family. And indeed, a lot of information is going to come. But what is very, very important is that it will not be very easy, because you're going to have two groups that will be fighting against each other. And the other one will be trying to prove that indeed we had this kind of influence from the Gupta family, and the others will be saying, no, this is what never existed. And for me, what would be very much interesting would be to get to the finality of the matter.
And I think that on its own, Mr. Ndou, will sort of exert a pressure on the Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo to help us as the nation to sort of separate facts from fiction. I read an interesting article by political analyst Ralph Mateja earlier on, who was basically saying that today is the beginning of a festival of allegations and counter-allegations. Indeed,
there are people that have already come forward to say certain activities did happen. And these people, we actually expect them to come forward to the commission. But also at the same time, if you look at the legal team that is there, obviously that will be representing former President Zuma and the Gupta brothers. It's actually a team that will actually be there to prove that such things did not happen. And I see a very, very difficult task for Mr. Zondo to actually get all the information together and at the end of the day come with a report that will be authentic, that will still be acceptable to all citizens. And obviously, whether there is truth or whether there are lies, that is actually something that has to be processed by the commission. All right.
Let's just pause a little. Let me just bring our SABC senior reporter into the discussion, Mzwandile Mbeshe, who's been there at the commission since early this morning. Mzwai, a very, very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. Today being the first day was just really about laying the foundation and putting everything into perspective.
Indeed, Palisa, it's the first day today, but you could already see that this is going to be a very important commission, looking at the legal minds in that room and people really who are presenting themselves because they're representing certain clients. Some of them have not even been called, but they're saying, given that there's a possibility of some of their names being dragged into this whole issue, so they want to be here, they want to know exactly what's happening. And interestingly, Palisa, today is that we now know that the first witness tomorrow will be Ndleleni William Matebula. Basically, during the time of all of this, he was the chief procurement officer at the Treasury. So I would assume that perhaps he would be laying out the processes insofar as procurement is concerned. So, and then from there, then the picture will get even clearer as to what will happen.
Yeah, but I think quite interestingly, Mzwai is one of the papers yesterday having reported that the commission is in touch with the former president, Jacob Zuma, who may also be called to the commission. Did anything come out on that?
Absolutely, Palisa. We do know that they have written to the former president legal team informing them that there's a number of issues arising that perhaps may need him. What we also saw, again, Palisa, was that he had a representative in the form of Moses Kakane, who is basically here appearing for the former president, basically saying he's not opposed to what is happening now and he doesn't want to delay the process, but what they want to do is to get proper documentation so that they'll be able to prepare thoroughly for this issue, because it has huge implications. And I think given the number of people and the legal representatives that are here, you can see that everyone knows the kind of implications once this process is concluded. So Moses Kakane, the rep for the president, or for the then president, made it clear that so he does not want to rely on issues that are coffee, that's how he put it. He said the coffee shop talk, so he would want proper documentation so that then they'll be able, Palisa, to decide whether they are appearing themselves or perhaps there may be a need for the former president to come. And of course, the commission has has confirmed that they've written to him.
But I think also most importantly what came out today, Mzwai, is the Commission appealing to the public who have information that can assist within the Commission to actually come out with this information.
Palesa, what we really noticed when the session began at around 10 was that there was a little bit of frustration, I guess, on the part of the chairperson. I think one of the things he raised very early on was that he's been struggling with getting clearance for some of the people that have been called to take a witness stand. He said he has written to the President, President Cyril Ramaphosa, so that he can assist in expediting that process so that those witnesses that need clearance could really be cleared. Because if that doesn't happen, it means this process, Palesa, will then drag even longer. Remember, he's already gone to court to say the initial remedial action of 180 days, which is 6 months, is not enough. So he basically got a court order that gave him 2 years. But if these issues still continue to be unresolved, so that may put even more pressure. And of course, one of the things the chairperson said was that he has made, rather the Commission has made a public call to everyone so who may assist in the work of the Commission. But he did indicate that he is disappointed because the response has been very poor. So, which basically means that they may really struggle perhaps in certain aspects to deal with issues that must be dealt with insofar as getting as much information as possible to assist the Commission in arriving at a proper conclusion.
Sorry, we have to leave it at that. Thank you so much indeed for that update. SABC senior reporter Mzwandile Mbeje live from Parktown, where the Commission is currently sitting. Let's just wrap up our conversation with political analyst Levy Ndou, who joins us now from our studios in Pretoria. Now, Levi, our reporter has just told us that Ndleleni Mathebula is set to testify tomorrow, but we do know that there are a number of names who've actually come forward, the likes of former Finance Minister Mcebisi Jonas, who was approached by the Guptas to become the Minister of Finance, Themba Maseko, the former head of government communications, who was apparently asked by Zuma to assist the Guptas, Levy Ndou, the ANC MP who was offered a cabinet job, and of course Willie Mathebula, as I said. Talk to us about that.
We need a lot of and testify so that South Africa is able to get out of the situation of the state capture, in the sense that it should not be repeated again. I expect more, even from the ruling party, even those that were in government were actually involved, to come to the fore so that they assist South Africans in order for us to take this matter and bury it. But also at the same time, you know, issues of commissions similar to these ones, you need to be very clear, especially in terms of laying all the ground rules so that no other party is seen to have been aggrieved by the process and getting the other party excited and the other party complaining. But at the end of the day, this remains a very, very huge task. But unfortunately or fortunately, something has to be done so that we get to the truth of the matter. We need the support of all political parties, those who are having information, to come forward so that we actually bury this matter.
But is this commission any different from the previous ones, even if they were not focusing on state capture itself? I mean, South Africans have actually lost hope on such commissions. We've seen the commission's proclamation that this one can refer any matter to the relevant law enforcement agencies for prosecution. So is this commission the last hope for South Africans?
Based on the agency and the seriousness of the matters involved, for me, this commission will be able to make all the necessary recommendations, especially where wrong things have been seen to be done and it's proven beyond reasonable doubt. They can also take the matter much further. Indeed, we have had a lot of commissions in South Africa which will come. Firstly, you'll have commissions who will submit their reports to the leadership, and we don't get to know what actually happened with those commissions. or you'll get some of the commissions making all their necessary recommendations or submitting to the authorities, and nothing is actually being done about that. But with the seriousness of the nature of this kind of a commission, this one has been given more powers so that we can end up getting to see arrests. But I want to repeat something here, Palisa, that we're going to have two major groups that would want to prove a point and the other one denying. And indeed, it's going to be a very, very difficult task for the chairperson of the commission. But at the end of the day, they'll have the final responsibility to process all the information, and then we actually got the final truth.
All right, we have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for coming through. Well, that's Levy Ndou, political analyst and lecturer for politics and public policy from the Tshwane University of Technology, joining us live from our studios in Pretoria. Let's take a quick break here on SA Today, your business news to follow.